Hello everyone and welcome to Rombauer Hour. We are coming to you live tonight from Rombauer's world headquarters here in St Helena. Some of you might recognize the view. This is the original winery here in St Helena. We're just outside the tasting room at what we call Chardonnay Point, and we have one of the best views in the Napa Valley. My name is Rich Allen. I'm the Vice President of Viticulture and Winemaking, and tonight we're going to be talking about sustainability and the life of a grapevine. So I've got my usual suspects here with me. Why don't you introduce yourselves?
Andrew Holloway, Associate Winemaker.
Thank you, Andrew. Token American. My name is Luke Clayton. I'm the winemaker here.
And down the end, some of you might recognize our token South African, Patrick Tokar, our viticulturalist. Patrick, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, I'm Patrick Tokar. I work for Rombauer Vineyards as the viticulturalist. And I am here, I'm really excited to be here to talk about sustainability in the vineyards. It's something that's really dear to my heart and really dear to the Rombauer tradition.
Spit it out.
Thank you. There you go. Thanks.
Glad to have you.
Andrew.
Yeah.
But, well, no, I mean, and also something that I think is really neat about the winery we're at here in Napa is it's certified Napa Green.
Right.
As well as our estate vineyards, which Patrick is more of an expert than me.
Yeah, all of our vineyards are certified either fish-friendly farming or Napa Green. So it's really a good thing. It's something that kind of it helps us to keep that in the forefront of our minds when we're doing projects.
What is fish-friendly?
Hang on.
Yeah.
My glass is
Because
empty.
we are empty, and before I have to listen to that guy, we got to get a little bit of wine poured. So we'll start here.
Well, thank you. While you pour the wine, I'll tell people what we're tasting tonight. Today we're doing a 2020 Sauvignon Blanc, our 2019 Canera Chardonnay, and our 2018 Napa Valley Cabernet. Yeah, so actually what question Richie asked, Patrick, what is fish-friendly farming?
And why is it so important? Now that I'm allowed to talk.
It's been approved.
Yeah. So fish-friendly farming is really a certification we get because of the way we farm, particularly our erosion control methods and how we preserve the riparian areas around our vineyards. So it's a way for reducing, it's a way to show that we are reducing our runoff and erosion in our vineyards into the streams and rivers here around Napa. And actually in the foothills too, we're fish-friendly farming certified.
What does that silt do when it runs into the river? Why is it so important to prevent erosion into our streams and rivers for fish?
Yeah, so it really kind of has a trickle-down effect. No pun there intended, but the silt will get into the streams and the rivers and create a riverbed that then is full of mud and muck rather than pebbles and rock. And you know, salmon require a certain amount of gravel for spawning. So the salmon will look for spots that are rocky and gravelly to lay their eggs, and if they don't have it, then they won't lay their eggs. So it will diminish the salmon population if we don't conserve and don't preserve the soil and the ground, and if it runs off into the river. Does that make sense?
That's pretty cool.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Hey, some winemaker
pretty
can
well.
understand it.
Now, Patrick,
I
I know since the start of the year, once you're outside of harvest, you have a slight quiet time, but now we're back into busy time for you. Since January through to now, what's been happening in the vineyards?
So right now we've been pruning. We're just finishing up pruning. We started in January, and really pruning is where we set the stage for the whole year. And actually we have a little video that we're going to show about pruning. Good morning, everybody. I'm Patrick Tokar, the viticulturalist for Rombauer Vineyards, and this is a beautiful January morning. I'm standing in the heart of Napa Valley, just south of St. Helena, at our Stice Lane Vineyard. Now, this is a vineyard that's about 28 acres, and it is all Cabernet Sauvignon. For those of you who have been lucky enough to try the Stice Lane Cabernet, it comes from a block that's just over there. Now, I'm here today to talk about pruning with a good friend of mine, Sidiaco Hernandez. He works for Renteria Vineyard Management, and he is the foremost authority in the Napa Valley for everything to do with vineyards. In fact, I've worked with Sidiaco for over 15 years. So Sidiaco, what exactly are we going to be doing today?
What we're going to do today is how we're going to prune this year. Because pruning is a very important activity for the vineyard to the growing year. It's when we decide the potential for the crop this year and quality, and it starts here.
when we talk about pruning to 2 buds, what we're doing is setting up the vine to grow 2 shoots for this year. So last year, this little section here was the spur position that we pruned to 2 buds, and each bud then grew into a shoot. So we're going to do the same thing this year, and we're going to cut back one of the shoots all the way off, and we're going to leave 2 buds on the other shoot. Now, selection of the shoots is critical because what it does is it ensures you need a strong shoot to begin with. So you don't want to go for a weak shoot or a shoot that has been broken. So this shoot is very short, as you can see, and broken. It's not very strong. So what do you think, Ciriaco? Should we keep this one or this one?
Thinking in your spacing, in this case, let's prune here 1 bud because the space. I know it's a weak one here, but we need the spacing.
Right.
But at this diameter is still okay, good for 1 bud. Maybe next year you put 2 buds.
Right. So as you can see, it's almost an art form pruning. It's not it's science, but it's pretty much art. You really have to think on your feet on which position to take, whether to go 1 bud, 2 buds, the upper spur position or the lower spur position. So Ciriaco, how many vines per hour do you typically prune?
In this type of vine, we prune like around 40, 50 vines per hour.
Each person? Wow.
Each person.
And how many vines are there per acre?
Normally in our vineyards, 1,225 vines per acre. And the crews prune around 40 to 50 vines per hour. Some good pruners more of that.
So that's really fast. They really have to stay on their toes.
Yeah.
All right, so there you have it. Ciriaco showed us how to prune these vines. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Patrick, for the invitation. Happy to do it again, anytime. And thank you, everybody.
Yeah, and we look forward to seeing how these vines progress through the year. Back to you.
Well, that was pretty cool. I mean, that really shows you how we set the vine up for the next year by the number of buds we leave, but also how we shape the vine. And Patrick, how important is it to have that canopy shape, and what are we trying to achieve with that shape of the canopy?
Oh yeah, it's not only important for this year, but for every year afterwards, right? I mean, anything you do this year has implications down the road. And like Ciriaco pointed out, really the spur position is just as important as which.
Yeah, I noticed he didn't like your
right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so what he's looking for there is to get maximum distance between the shoots or the new shoots that are growing. You get that space, you get good cluster separation, you get nice open canopies with nice sunlight penetration in there. So that's he's thinking ahead. He can actually visualize what's happening on the vine in 3 months' time as he's pruning. It's an amazing.
And Ciriaco, I mean, he started working. He's worked his whole career for Renteria. He actually worked for Oscar's dad. So he's been doing this a long time, and he's sort of like the silent master. I wouldn't question him in the vineyard.
So don't feel bad.
Yeah, Junior.
But I'm definitely getting a little parched, and I need a little more wine, Andrew.
Yeah, well, hopefully I can fulfill that, because I don't know.
So we're drinking the 2027 Sauvignon Blanc,
Yeah.
Patrick. Sorry, Andrew. Tell us about where these grapes come from, how we get these flavors into the wine,
Right.
and sort of describe from the vineyard side of things, which we're focusing on tonight, how we make the wine taste the way it does.
Well, I mean, just having it right now, it's drinking beautifully, especially being outside. I mean, this is the weather kind of for
Yeah,
Sauvignon Blanc. I
it
mean,
is.
right now, it's going to kick off my year, and I'm just going to carry this wine going at my house until, I don't know, well,
It's
the
sold
rest
out.
of the year, until I can't get any more.
How long
But-
does a bottle actually last you? About 30 seconds?
Yeah, it's water.
35?
Yeah, it's too quick. I don't want to know. But I think the biggest thing about this is vineyard sourcing. I mean, it's how we build the wine up from top to bottom. We build the depth, the flavors, the layers of the wine. Where we go from a warmer region right behind us, actually Pope Valley, where daytime highs are a little bit warmer. We get a lot of sunlight exposure. It's above the fog line. And then we start working, we have vineyards in Calistoga, all the way down to southern Napa, and then we work our way out west to the cooler regions of Sonoma Valley. And I think Sonoma Valley really provides, the texture, the length, the depth, the fresh cut grass, brightness, grapefruit, fresh citrus. Whereas on this side, in the warmer regions, we get more white nectarine, more of those really big, punchy fruit flavors. But we build out the back end of the wine over there on Sonoma. And I think, you can see it right here. And 2020, white wines, it's incredible how much aromatic complexity, texture, depth, length on the palate, and then the acid just pops. I mean, and then there's the climate. I mean, you can kind of see as up in Pope Valley, we're playing towards those warmer climate regions as we work our way west, and we build the wine with that grapefruit, fresh cut grass, lime.
We've got a couple of vineyards which are pretty pronounced with the lime character.
Yeah, and I think it really balances the wine. Not only does it bring bright acid, but that perception of lime, lemon, citrus really bring that pop to the palate. And so right now it's just drinking beautifully, especially for the next, I don't know, year.
Yeah, basically. Make it last that long.
Basically.
And Sauvignon Blanc is usually the first variety we start with. Like generally the ripening of how grapes go with different varieties, you start with your lighter aromatic white wines. We're picking them at a lower Brix with a higher acid level to retain freshness. Then we get into our full-bodied whites and then into the light reds and into the full-bodied reds such as Cabernet. So generally Sauvignon Blanc is the first thing we pick. It's the most exciting time of year when the grapes turn up. Everyone has like this nervous start to harvest. What will it be? How will we go? And it starts with Sauvignon Blanc.
Do you see how it picks across? Like,
well, it's amazing because like right here, we'll start, say, in Napa Valley, warmer region, and we'll start, let's say, mid-August on an early year, maybe late August.
Usually in Pope Valley.
Yeah, in Pope Valley. And as we carry through, I mean, you can see the temperature differential just by the length of time it takes to pick. I mean, from that first Sauvignon Blanc pick to the last, it can be about 6 weeks. And throughout that, you're just in such a cooler site that they need that hang time, that ripening, the acids to drop down, the flavors to really be pronounced. And as you're tasting it, you're seeing those green flavors start to subdue, really bright fruit flavors come to the forefront, and the acids are starting to taper down to a point where they're not ripping your teeth off, and they're really getting into balance. And so really bringing in Sauvignon Blanc, it's a true varietal that where the grape, I think, tastes like the wine.
Yeah.
And it's incredible because you can really see the reflection like dead on from the fruit coming in.
Yeah, it's like you said, we'll start in Pope Valley, we work our way down the Napa Valley, we hang right through Carneros, come up the Sonoma Valley, and where do we usually finish picking, Patrick?
Oh, put you on the spot, mate.
What the heck? It's Sonoma, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Sonoma,
the cool
Russian
area.
River.
Yeah, for sure.
Depends on when those winemakers get their
Right,
picks in.
back to get there.
Yeah. Well, that's enough winemakers geeking out for a bit. Let's get back to Patrick. So, Patrick, between January and April, what else is going on in the vineyard?
Well, let's back up a little bit. In November, we plant cover crops. We plant cover crop seeds in the soil, and then the rains come and the cover crops start to pop up. And somewhere, January, February, they're really starting to grow because of the nice weather. So we grow a variety of cover crops here at Rombauer, depending on the situation. We do a lot of grasses in hillsides and areas where we need a lot of erosion control. We'll also plant mustards, which is very ubiquitous here in the valley. You see it all over the place.
It's a very pretty time of year.
It is. It's beautiful to see it blooming, and we use that. It's great for pollinators. And then also we grow beans and peas. That really helps to create a nice, rich nitrogen source that we can use throughout the growing year. So
Because they're nitrogen-fixing plants. They
that's
pull
right. Their
nitrogen out of
roots
the
have little
atmosphere.
nodules on them that really, that actually produce nitrogen. So we can till that up and get it. And as you can see, I mean, the mustard just grows like crazy. So it's growing, and then somewhere around March, when things start to dry out, we'll start to mow. What we're doing is we're taking that cover crop, we're mowing all that green material down, and also all the cane prunings from last year. So there's a lot of wood in there that we're mowing down. And that sets up the time really so that we can start to cultivate and mix that into the soil. So we grew that cover crop, and now we're going to mix it in. And by doing that, what you're doing is you're incorporating that green material and the wood chippings into the soil, and it helps to build the organic structure of that soil. So you have better water penetration, you have better fertilization, and slow release of that fertilizer, and it really helps the soil structure.
That's cool. That mustard, I must say, Richie, I think I've driven past you taking photos of yourself in the mustard along the trail a few times.
Selfie king here.
Selfie king, yeah.
I'm there in my bikini,
Yeah.
taking selfies for Instagram.
It's a great
Thanks, Luke.
photo op. No worries.
Do not follow him on Instagram. You don't want that.
Sorry, I put him off.
Yeah, you totally put me off. I think you put all the viewers off as well. Thanks, Luke. But Patrick, one thing that we've been trialing this year instead of mowing is a new form of mowing, and we've actually done a trial actually down the bottom of the hill here with some sheep.
Yeah.
So why are we using sheep in the vineyard, and what do they do, and what are the benefits?
Yeah, so that's really exciting. I mean, it was such a good opportunity to try sheep down below, as you said. And you know, really what we're trying to do here is a couple things. First, we want to eliminate a mowing pass with the tractor. So, you know, that's labor, that's fuel, that's emissions. We can get rid of that, at least one pass, you know, that's a positive for us. The second thing is, you know, that the mower, as you saw, was chopping up all that green clippings, and then it would get disked in. Well, with the sheep, you know, they're adding more to the ecosystem, right? They're going to eat that, and they're going to drop out, you know, other material.
They're producing manure from their rear end.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly. And so,
Such a unique
so
process.
they're doing that. Yeah. And so that will get mixed in with, you know, we'll have to do another mowing pass, and then that will get mixed in with the manure, and it will actually create a great compost. And as you can see, they have a guard dog, Nemo, who guards the sheep 24/7.
It's always good trying to find Nemo amongst the sheep.
Oh, he looks like he is big. He
Say
looks
when
like
he
a
comes
sheep.
running though, he's like a small polar bear, and you
Yeah.
think you might lose an arm.
He means business. He means business. Yeah.
Well, and if you followed us on social media, you've definitely seen the sheep, because those are a big hit with not only the Instagram followers and the social media and all that, but also just people coming up the driveway, because they're just right there along the fence when they were here, and I think they just put like posing for photos.
Oh yeah.
But I think you know, as Richie mentioned earlier, you know, we go through this timeline, theoretical timeline of aromatic whites and white and full body whites, light reds and big reds, and so next on our kind of progression is Chardonnay. So textured, full body white, and so this, you know, we're generally seeing right after or in between Sauvignon Blanc. So I think, you know, looking at where this comes from,
I thought that was your favorite wine.
it is. So I have to pace myself because I have a lot of evening in front of me.
Ah,
Yeah.
People won't understand him later.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right. I'll have someone angry at me.
All
But
right, let's talk Chardonnay.
Yeah. So Chardonnay, I think the biggest thing about our Chardonnay and the most unique aspect, the Carneros.
Absolutely.
Right. I
Great
mean,
region.
you can't. Fruit source is the biggest thing for us. So southern end of Napa Valley as well as Sonoma. It spans both counties, and really for us, it's, you know, right here in St. Helena, it's about 10 to 12 degrees cooler down there during harvest. So you're really seeing, you know, lower daytime highs, retention of acidity, and really bright fruit flavors without getting really high bricks, high alcohol. So you're getting more balance. And for me, I mean, it's really the complete Chardonnay. And right now, it's been about 10 months since bottling, 8 months?
Yeah.
8 months.
8 months since bottling is really when it really hits a big stride.
It's when the wine finally starts to settle down. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you have
This
each,
is Richie's time to drink it.
It's
It
my
is.
favorite time. The reason is when you first bottle the wine, you know, it's really tight, it's very citrusy, that creamy mid palate's a bit suppressed, the butteriness isn't
Yep.
there. But after a few months in bottle, you know, the citriness starts to settle down, the ripe peach starts to come out, that creamy mid palate starts to show itself, the oak integrates better.
Yep.
But you get the butter on the finish, and it's usually April, May the year following bottling when that starts to come out. So you have that perfect balance between fresh, you know,
Fresh fruit.
young wine,
Yep.
and now wine that's had a few months in bottle, and that's why I love it.
What's that seamless, you know, kind of like all-encompassing palette?
Oh, and there's
Oh,
definitely
as
the
you see-
climate graphic. Yes, probably. If we instead of talking amongst ourselves,
Yeah.
look at the screen.
Yeah, so you can see on the graphic, you know, stone fruit, those melons, apricots, peaches, we're getting really from the Napa side, which is warmer. And then where we start in Napa, we work our way basically west, because we're dealing with lower daytime highs, more fog later in the day, and that's where we get, you know, more citrus, pear, melon, green apple. I mean, on some blocks.
Yeah.
And it's really where we again build the wine out by working in one region, but because that region spans, you know, considerable distance, that where we different little microclimates basically, which are just different subregions that have slightly different impacts of fog, temperature, you know, daytime highs and lows, and we can really build the wine out.
Yeah, it is really interesting because as we start in like Napa County, our Buckley Vineyard, right there on the San Pablo Bay, so really juicy acidity and that like saline quality we get from there. But then
That's right, yeah.
as we move across into Sonoma to Patriots Vineyard, all the way to deep Sonoma, where San Giacomo Ranch, that area,
Right.
that oily texture we get from picking later, but because it's been so cool, the sugar levels are very still moderate for us, but it's just that weight and texture on the palate.
It just adds that depth of concentration.
Yeah.
It's that fruit texture. It's incredible.
It's actually
It's-
tasting really good.
And then combined.
I hope
gives
everyone
us
at home's drinking Rambouillet.
I'm sure Kristen and Nata.
I'm sure our wives are enjoying a glass or three.
I mean, how can you not?
It's that perfect balance of, and that seamless integration that is what makes the wine so famous, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I really just love the sweetness of vanilla, cream, butter, like everything. It's just hitting on all cylinders.
It is. Well, that's enough of you again, Andrew. Usually
It
it's
always
Andrew.
is. It always is.
Well, let's flick back to Patrick.
the star of the show.
The star, the special guest, Patrick, yes. All right, let's talk about bud break. All right, we're starting to see it. A little bit of growth, a little bit of green everywhere.
And that's pretty much where we are right now.
Yeah, right, exactly. And it's interesting because you said earlier, Andrew, that the Chardonnay and Carneros is relatively early season for picking because it's cool, and yet it's also one of the places where we see bud break first. So the Chardonnay comes out relatively quickly in, say, beginning of March, middle of March, and progresses from there. And now we see shoots that are probably 4 to 6 inches tall out there. The rest of the valley, the red varieties, they're starting to come out now. So we're seeing, like you're seeing in the picture here, is what kind of the red varieties look like now.
And so, I forgot what I was going to say.
I'm just overwhelmed by Patrick's fluidity.
He's lost in Patrick's eyes.
Frost. Sorry. So when the shoots come out, when they're that big,
fine, guys.
they're very, very delicate. You've got a growing shoot tip. You've got the clusters there. That shoot's going to continue to grow. Those buds are going to set for next year. So our fruitfulness for next year is determined this year.
Right.
But they're very delicate, and at this time of year we're prone to frost. So what does that do? Why is frost such a bad thing at this time of year for grapevines?
Yeah, well, like you said, those buds are so delicate right now that any frost weather can really damage the buds. Anybody who has a spring garden at home knows, you got to plant after a certain date or you might get frost. So we can't control bud break. We can to a certain measure, but there are 3 things that we do really to mitigate frost damage or frost, to do frost protection. First is we'll prune late. Late pruning will give us a good week or 2 of extra protection. So delaying pruning will actually delay bud break. So that will give us, probably 2 weeks worth of protection. So that's a good passive form of frost control. It doesn't cost us anything, and it's absolutely sustainable method, right? Another method we use is wind machines. So the machines sit about 35 feet up in the air, these big fans. They go on when temperatures get down around 34, 33, and it mixes the air. Usually there's an inversion layer, so that's cold air down by the vines, warm air up by the head of that fan. And that fan will turn on and mix the air, so it'll make if it's say 32 down where the vines are and 37 up where that fan is, the air will get mixed and we'll end up with air around 35 degrees, so we'll prevent
It has
frost
to be
that
below
way.
32 for frost to form.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so the windmills
Gives
all
you
throughout the
protection.
Napa Valley, that's what you're talking about. They mix those inversion layers and save us from the frost.
Right, and it's a great form of frost protection because we use propane engines, so
Yep.
that's that
Very
helps in
efficient.
emissions. Very efficient, very emission friendly. So
And what's the final way you can protect from frost?
Yeah, so the last way is through overhead frost or sprinklers. It does use a little bit more water, but in some circumstances that's all you have to use. So we do use it in one of our ranches at Stice. And the object there is to keep the buds wet and not freeze, because when they freeze, they actually. Oh yeah, there you go. There's a great
Great
picture.
shot, yeah. So that's
Yeah.
frozen water to stop the frost
Right.
burning the bud.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Because
the
that
ice is warmer than the frost.
Right. Exactly. If
Yeah.
you can keep that ice wet, then it'll stay warmer than actual below 32. Once things get below 32 is when you see the damage. At 32, you're okay. And ice, forms at 32. So.
And Andrew showed us a photo earlier of Burgundy. There's been some
yeah.
pretty amazing frost this year in Burgundy, and they use a completely different method to us, and it's little
fires.
throughout the vineyard.
Thousands of little fires.
Yeah, it's
Adds
quite.
to the terroir.
It adds to the terroir.
Now, Patrick, a question. So, do all vineyards in all areas get frost? Like here, do we put it on the hills, or is it just certain areas where it sits?
It's more prevalent in certain areas, certainly up valley. When we're close to the bay, like Buckley. The
Yeah.
Buckley Ranch doesn't get frost. It might get frost once every 10 years, you know, a freak thing. But for the most part, as you move, it becomes more of a hazard as you move up the valley.
Okay. What about like in the Sierra Foothills, where our Zinfandel is?
So the Sierra Foothills is a little more special. It gets pruned especially late.
Yep.
We can actually get snow at our El Dorado Ranch, so it gets pruned late, and it is just now starting to push buds. So
It's
it's
about
going
a
to
month
pass.
behind, isn't
yeah,
it?
right. So it's going to hopefully, you know, frost season is going to pass us before things get out too
Yeah.
far.
It's
Okay.
interesting as well up there because it is later, but the season's compressed, isn't it? So we start bud burst later, but it's usually one of the first places we start picking reds, and they have a very compressed growing season.
They do. It gets a lot than Napa, and it's cooler during the night, so you get that good diurnal fluctuations,
And it
really
makes your job challenging, doesn't it? Because you have about a month
does.
less to get through all the activities that we
Yes,
require.
Yes, it is. It's tough.
Well, yeah, we should probably drink some Cabernet while we're here.
Yeah. All right.
When in Napa.
When in Napa, drink some Cab. So, you saw that video earlier of our Stice Lane, and we're pretty lucky at Rombauer. We have vineyards for Cabernet, especially the length and breadth of the Napa Valley. So we start up in Calistoga at our Bennett Lane Ranch. We have one grow on Calistoga Blair Vineyards. It's on the southern end of Calistoga. There's a great shot of Bennett Lane with the Pinnacle Hills behind it. Palisades, sorry, Palisades behind it. Then as we come
Trying to
down the
read
valley, we get Stice Lane where you saw the video earlier. A little bit further down valley, we have Hackett up on Atlas Peak at 1,700 feet. We have a Cabernet vineyard, and we pretty much pick down the valley as we go. We generally start up in Bennett Lane and at Blair and work our way down, but that allows us to have lots of different parcels, lots of different blocks to work with blending. And so if one vineyard, like say Bennett, gets frosted and we don't get a lot of crop off it, usually Stice on the south side of St. Helena where it's a bit warmer, we don't get frost. And so we always are able to make a wine and get a crop and produce amazing wine.
Yeah, and Napa Valley certainly has a lot of different microclimates, and so having the vineyards in the different areas really adds to the complexity.
It does. I
and
mean,
variety.
especially, if you just see the wines and you can see the soils at each site. I mean, the exposures, the elevations, basically the daytime highs. I mean, just think about Atlas versus St. Helena. But you really see it building the wine out, whereas Atlas builds that framework, and it's kind of the skeleton of the wine. It builds the structure. The backbone. It's the backbone of the wine. And then Stice has that rich mid-palate plushness, black currant. Bennett's really like powerful fruit. You have Blair, which is really like
It's
candy
usually quite
fruit.
soft tannins up at Bennett
It
as well.
is, and
It's really
soft.
plush.
So each one plays into the wine at the end, and it builds the wine through those layers. And I mean, you can see there as you work from really warm climate Napa, and you work your way down, you see those different components. So you have brandy cherry on the really warm end, but really we see blackberry, raspberry, black currant, and we're starting to play in black currant, kind of up at Atlas, red currant, like a really nice herb quality to it, and like just a spice box element actually.
And
You see them all through the vineyards as you go.
Yeah, you do.
And different
Yeah.
sites, different things. So
And Luke, you cover all the wineries for us as part of your job. When does Cabernet usually come in? Like you work on Sauvignon Blanc, you work on Chardonnay, you work on Cabernet and Zin. How does the Cabernet fit into your harvest schedule?
for me, so the Cabernet starts usually about mid-September. We'll start getting stuff out of Calistoga, and then it actually sort of comes down valley usually as well. But by mid-October, we're rock and rolling here in St. Helena, and everything likes to ripen all at once.
So
here,
when
it seems
Andrew's
like.
getting less quiet with Chardonnay,
Yeah,
you're
when
getting
Andrew's
more
on
busy.
vacation.
I get to duck up. I'll duck up and mess some stuff up.
Stay away, Andrew.
Yeah. You have to come up here and kind of spy on these guys, make sure they're keep them honest.
And with the Cabernet, like the winemaking behind Cabernet, Luke, we do a lot of different things. All of our wines are handpicked. How do we treat the Cabernet when it turns up at the winery? What sets our winemaking apart from our competitors?
Oh, thank you for asking.
We've got a lot of time to fill in because we're way too efficient tonight, so I'm just firing questions.
All right. So actually, once the grapes come here, actually in the vineyard, we're actually analysing basically the quality of the grapes, the colour in the vineyard. So before the fruit actually comes to the winery, we already know which blocks, which rows are going to produce a potentially high quality of fruit. So with those ones, once it reaches the winery, everything gets optically sorted, so it separates the green muck of this, kicks it out, and just leaves us with these beautiful berries that we want to put in to either tank, or we'll pop the heads off our barrique barrels, 59-gallon barrels, and we'll ferment in there. And then instead of a traditional pump over, we'll
roll the
actually
barrels.
spin them. Hopefully we'll have some South Africans back this year to help roll the barrels.
Some
for
big
us.
rugby players.
Yes. So if you're watching, please come back. And they'll roll. And what that does actually adds a lot of weight and texture, and there's depth. So like something like Atlas, that is mountain fruit, that is tannic, that we really have to watch, especially in the barrels. Because if we just pump it over, like same as a Blair, which is very light, delicate, but like a velvety texture, that Atlas Peak would just be like chewing on this table here. It should be like chewing on wood and drying. So we have to be very
A
careful.
lot of tannin.
It is. So for us, is to make sure we got all the fruit out. So when you guys pick up your glass, smell it, you get that nice fruit. But then when you drink, you get that weight and texture from the barrel ferment, fresh fruit from the stainless steel, and really follows through on the finish.
How much of this is our classic Napa Cab, and we also have our single vineyard wines, our diamond selection, and our Le Merduchet at the top. How much of this wine is barrel fermented versus, say, the Stuyslán or the Atlas or the Diamond?
Yeah, so like usually the Atlas or the Diamond, they're more up to like usually 100%, but depending on the vintage, probably 90 to 100, I would say. And then this one, I believe, is about 30 to 40. So we do as much as we can in barrel because we like the way it makes a better wine. But just the way harvest is, it doesn't let us to put everything into barrel. But that with the tank fermentation helps keep that freshness and that balance that we're looking for.
And you know, we've got the 2020 Sauvignon Blanc. We tried the 2019 Chardonnay. What was the 18? What was the? I mean, you know these wines really well, obviously. But the 18 Cabernet. What's the hallmark of that particular vintage with the red wines?
18, I reckon it's very similar to 16. If you love 16, you'll love 18. It's very plush, rich fruit on the palate, silky tannins, and it's got great structure, but it's not overpowering the tannins on the back.
Yeah.
I think Andrew would like that one.
Well, I think
How
it's
do you describe the texture?
I think vibrant, open. On the palate, it's really like it just has a plush, like it fills out the whole palate all around. And I mean, it's only been in bottle, let's say, about a year, and I think it's drinking perfectly.
Right on a year, actually.
I mean, it's drinking like perfectly. Some years, you see years with more aggressive tannins and bigger wines, whereas I think this has the acidity and the freshness to last.
Yeah.
I think this also, I mean, right out of the gate, after about a year in bottle, is drinking perfectly.
It's got an amazing natural balance, the 18s, as Luke was saying, ripe, rich fruit, but this plush, soft tannin texture, which I think really sets them apart. I don't know if they're quite as good as the 16s.
See,
I know you guys think they are.
Well, yeah, and I love 16 as well, and 14. I think that it's funny because every other year from 14, 16, 18 kind of play in a very similar set.
Yeah, they're definitely in terms of their flavor profile and their tannin texture.
Fruit,
yeah.
They have there's no aggressive edges to them, and I think they're really soft, round, approachable wines that are built to age with the brightness and acidity, but they drink well young. Whereas I think there's years, like 13, I know your favorite. Really,
Classic year.
they're just like bold, big, meant to age for 50 years.
Yeah.
Can be drunk, semi-young, but really these are just approachable, enjoyable, and just delicious.
So as I was saying, does Patrick go on vacation every second year or something? Because
Every second year seems to be better.
No, it's not better. It's just a different profile.
Yeah.
I think
I'll bring that up in his review.
different profile. Whereas I think these are rounder, softer, more open wines. I think wines like 15, 17 are lovely wines.
Oh, they're still
just
great
built,
vintages.
They're built for more aging potential, I would think. They need a little bit more time in bottle to really show their stuffing.
Yeah. So we're working with.
It's all preference. I mean,
We're working with multiple AVAs, right? So we, Pope Valley, Charles Valley, Calistoga, St. Helena, everything. El Dorado, Amador.
Yeah.
What's your favorite AVA, Andrew?
Well, luckily I only have one child, so it's like choosing a child.
Choose your favorite child. No, seriously, just out of curiosity, I know what mine is.
My favorite AVA. I mean, if it's just speaking cab.
No, it can be white. I'm just curious. Like we all have our favorites, right? Where
Yeah.
you get excited when you try a wine from that region. And
I mean, the most I drink is probably the Sauvignon Blanc, so that would be closest. But I mean, AVA wise, I really love Stag's Leap.
yeah, Luke,
I mean,
tough one, huh?
Yeah, I drink anything really. So it doesn't matter. But like,
He's a glutton for punishment.
yeah, I am. I really like the Stice Lane actually. I like the profile. I just like that texture and that.
I would say that
follow
makes
through.
sense.
Yeah, Patrick's is an IPA.
Patrick, what do you?
I'll go for a white. I like the Carneros.
You like
I like Carneros AVA. It's nice and cool and
Yeah,
beautiful.
I mean, it's
beautiful.
Well, now I'm going to follow up with another question. What do you think of the cab? Like you see all the vineyards. You're intimately involved with, pretty much from 48 inches down the soil. And then the moment we pick, you've done your job, and our job is literally, well, their job, I should say, is to try and preserve that quality and not mess it up. What do you think of the Cabernet, and how do you think your counterparts here have done?
I think they did a great job. I think this is beautiful wine. It's showing really nicely. It's nice. It's great on the palate. I think it's just an overall. So it's a winner.
How's it compared to Tokar Vineyard Cabernet? For those of you who don't know, Patrick actually has half an acre?
Gentleman's Vineyard.
And we were every year that we help him out a little bit. I think this year we're going to take over Patrick's vineyard when it comes to winemaking, and we'll have a team effort.
As long as he makes the tiki bar before it.
Yeah, tiki bar before it. So, well, speaking of Cabernet, and a lot of our Cabernet vineyards, we have something pretty special out there, Patrick. I know you're very, very passionate about, and that is bees. So why don't you walk us through what we're doing with bees in the vineyard and why we have them and how we use them?
All right. Yeah, we have bees at 3 of our vineyards. At the Patriots Vineyard, we have them at down at Bennett Lane and also at El Dorado. And we have a company that comes in and they keep their bees on the property for about 8 to 10 months. And then in the other times, they go and to other crops and they pollinate them, like almonds. They do tomatoes and other strawberries. So bees are super important to the environment, right? I mean, they are like the pollinators. They're the things that
super
keep
important to the food chain.
right.
Everything.
Yeah.
I mean, top to
All
bottom.
your fruits and
Totally.
vegetables.
Yeah, and so, to give these guys the opportunity to have a safe place to keep their bees is super important. And I think it's just one of the things that we could do for Rombauer, as Rombauer, is to, give them this safe place, and also it gives us, every time we go out there and we do something, we always think about the bees, like, oh, how is this impacting the bees, right?
Yeah.
So it gives us a check, all the time, like, okay. As you can see, here's the beekeeper here, and he just uses his bare hands to lift open the
Patrick,
frames. It's pretty amazing.
When this was filmed, Patrick, I noticed the bees didn't seem to like you, and you were fine, but everyone else they took a liking to it. Gave him a little notification.
yeah, I think just about everybody got stung doing this filming. It was pretty funny. But and another thing too is those are native bees, right? And those are the ones that pollinate, and those are domesticated bees. But we really care about those are non-native bees. We care about native bees too. And there are over 1,500 different species of native bees in California, from bumblebees to just solitary carpenter bees, right? And they play a really important part in our ecosystem, especially in the vineyard. So we try to maintain, the cover crop that will help them. Will give them a food source of pollen and nectar, and also the riparian areas around our vineyards. We really try to build those up to give them a sanctuary and a habitat to live. And it's something that's definitely dear to my heart, and I think it's dear to Rombauer's. I mean, everybody seems to be really on board with this, and it's just a great thing to be able to help out the little guys.
I know you said, Patrick, that a safe place for the bees, but didn't one year a bear break into our vineyard and destroy bees?
Yeah, actually, you might have to tell that story. That's quite funny. Up in El Dorado.
Yeah. So
How safe were those bees?
Yeah, up in El Dorado, we have several different spots where we keep bees, and there is a black bear that likes to come into the vineyard, and he used to, or she used to, eat the grapes, but now at least she goes for the honey. So I don't know, that's kind of a positive thing on our side.
Have you got
I
a
don't
name
know.
for this bear? Yogi, perhaps?
Yeah, but the issue is this bear will come and knock down the fence, eat the honey, and then go through, but just knock the fence down in a different area. So
you got 2 holes in
we
the
got
fence to
2
deal
holes
with.
to fix every day.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, that bear.
So how have
Tell
you
Michael,
solved that
watch out.
problem? How have you solved that problem? How are you protecting these bees that we're talking about?
Yeah, we have electric fencing up
Yeah.
around the bees. tends to help.
Yep.
You know, I think if the bear is hungry, it'll get through, but it'll give him a little zap. So.
And Patrick, I know there's a program with another company been working with to what we're doing with bees, and what is that, and how's that going to help us in the future?
So it's this Be Better Farming, and it's another certification that we get, but it's a way again to kind of check ourselves to make sure we're doing everything we need to do to maintain the population of the native bees. And give them the proper habitat to live.
So you have to set aside part of our
part
of our land.
Yeah. So a lot of native bees are actually solitary insects. So they don't live in colonies like honeybees, and so it's important to give them a place to nest, but also to preserve that spot, because if you kill that bee, then you're killing that whole lineage, right? So you need a good habitat for them. What this certification really does is it says, okay, yes, we are preserving the habitat by our cultural methods. Any pesticides we have to spray, you got to keep that in mind. What's the effect, or what's the timing on that, right? Do you want to spray when it's blooming? So it's a nice program. It's a great program that I'm really excited to get into.
I know it's something you're very passionate about. It's pretty. I'm personally very excited about it.
It is. Yeah, I do. I really enjoy it. So.
Well, there's a number.
Pet bees.
Pet bee.
There's a number of other sustainability things we do at Rombauer, and
well, I think
like we've talked extensively about our vineyard practices and what we do with our land, but there's a lot we do here at the winery that revolves around sustainability to make us be here for future generations.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the winery for a second.
be more, just better stewards.
Yeah.
Be more.
Let me guess, no pun intended.
Actually, that's subconscious. That's subconscious. But something that I think is critical, and it's a resource that's just asking to be taken advantage of, is solar. I mean, coming from an area where every day I don't look at the weather and, oh my gosh, it's sunny again, and it's a perfect day.
Andrew's from Oklahoma.
Yeah,
There's a great photo up here.
Yeah, so that is right here at St. Helena. So we have solar panels here at St. Helena and down in Napa, and then later in the year out at our facility in the Sierra Foothills and our second tasting room.
Where we have our tasting room, yeah.
So later in this year we'll have that, and those solar panels provide for about 60 to 70% of all of our energy resources or needs here at the winery. So I think it's just a resource that is there. It's perfectly sustainable, renewable, and it's just it's great to take advantage of. I mean, there are no ice storms, thunderstorms here.
I'm good to run the air conditioner using the solar panels. Beautiful days
with the windows open.
If you think about it, like during harvest, at our Napa winery, where we're trying to keep all the ferments very, very cool.
Right.
So we have these massive rooms full of barrels fermenting, and we need to keep those rooms at 50 degrees, and so they're heavily insulated. But that's a huge energy cost, and having solar power helps offset that energy need.
Well,
make sure we're not pulling
and demand from the
money out
carbon
of
grid.
Yeah,
I mean, as much as we
grid.
can decrease that carbon need, it's help for us to sustain ourselves, not only as be good stewards, but to be a good brand and something that can last generations, because we're building this not only for us but for the next generation, and there's people after us that will have the land, and we want to make sure that it's all maintained and well seen.
And speaking of the next generation, there's something we do here at the winery, Luke, that actually helps Patrick out in the vineyard with all of our green matter.
Basically, about 80% of the winery waste here ends up being on compost. And so with that compost, we actually take that out to the vineyard, they compost it there, and then it was about November or December, we spray it out on the vines. Basically
Spread it on the vine row.
Yeah, for nutrients for the next harvest.
So
natural nitrogen.
Yeah.
All the skins you generate, all the stems from picking grapes, all of the mark and skins from the red ferments, you put them in a big compost pile and you compost them and use them back in the vineyard.
Well, I don't cost them. Patrick does it for me.
Yeah, we actually have two ranches where we do the composting, and we compost it for a year, and then the following year we put it out. So it takes about a year to cook it and to
break it all down.
break it down. And yeah, it's great because it's like free compost.
It is. I mean,
compost is awesome for the vine, and so to make it yourself and to throw it out, it's like you're putting back what you've taken out.
And how much of that compost, Patrick? I know it doesn't meet all of our needs. Like we generate a huge amount of compost, but we need, how much of what we generate supplies our needs percentage-wise, do you think?
Probably around 50%.
Yeah, so we're still bringing in additional compost.
We do, yeah. And different variety, different types of compost, right? I mean, that grape compost is great, But you also want other types of compost, other types of material out there.
Yeah, and then here at the winery, a big thing we're focused on here at the winery is water use. And that's a huge topic, obviously, right now during this prolonged dry period. But our wineries, we use an average of 2.4 gallons of water per gallon of wine produced. This sounds like a lot, but it's actually very, very low. Most wineries, well, the industry average is 6 to 14. Generally, smaller wineries use about 14 gallons of water per gallon of wine produced, and a large winery use 6. We're at 2.4. In 2019, we're actually at 1.8, which makes us one of the most water efficient wineries in the world. We do that through improved cellar practices, using steam for sanitation, a whole lot of different things. But with that comes very concentrated wastewater, and we have to discharge our wastewater, and so we have to process it. So at our Napa winery, we have a new state-of-the-art, new generation of wastewater system called an EcoVault. It's an anaerobic digester. This was actually designed by a couple of MIT graduates with a grant from NASA to produce a system that could process waste, generate clean water, and also energy. And right now we're not generating energy from it, and we're still discharging the wastewater, but hopefully in the future, fingers crossed, we can get to a point where we treat that water further through reverse osmosis and use it back in the winery for cleaning floors and tanks and things like that. So it's we're pretty up there with leading the industry. In the vineyard, Patrick, I mean, that's where we use most of our water, and so there's lots of things we do in terms of monitoring the vine status, the soil moisture, the evapotranspiration. Could you talk a little bit about the 3 different things we do to monitor the vines to make sure we're using the right amount of water?
Absolutely. So water is such a precious resource, right? I mean, it can really make you or break you as far as a vineyard goes, especially in a year like this where we're having dry conditions. So we really utilize 3 different processes or tools to look at the amount of water that we have available, the amount of water we're using, and the amount of water the vine is using or needs. One of the things we do is we can actually measure the evapotranspiration of the vine, so we can see.
Okay, well, back up. What is evapotranspiration?
Yeah, big word.
So evapotranspiration is, the leaves, the water travels through the vine into the leaf, and then the leaf has these stomatal openings, and the water gets evaporated out of there, and that's what draws the nutrients into the leaves and
so water goes out, carbon comes in for photosynthesis.
Right.
And that is evapotranspiration.
Right, there you go.
If you knew, why'd you ask?
The leading question, right?
Figure out your own answer.
So we measure the soil moisture.
So we can measure evapotranspiration. So that tells us how much water the vine is actually using at a particular time. Another tool we use is a neutron probe, which looks at the amount of moisture that's in the soil. So we can see how much water is stored in the soil. So that's kind of like the gas tank, right? How much water we have down there and how much we have available to us. And then the third thing is the neutron probe, where we measure the amount of pressure.
No, the pressure bomb, not a neutron probe.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, the pressure bomb, relief water potential. And it measures the amount of pressure it takes to push water through the stem. So it's how hard the vine is working to get the water to the leaf is what it's doing. So we can use that to see how stressed the vine is. So we know how much water the vine is using, how stressed it is, and how much water we have in the soil. So those 3 tools gives us an opportunity to see exactly when we need to add water, when the vine is doing fine. And that because water is so important to us, we use drip irrigation instead of sprinkler irrigation or furrow irrigation, where it's more wasteful for water.
So it's a much more efficient way of delivering water to the grapevine.
Right, because you've got 2 emitters right underneath the vine, so they're putting water right in the drip zone and nowhere else. So, when you want to apply water, you're precision applying it. We also precision apply the water by way of in most of our vineyards we have 2 drip lines, and one allows us to go ahead and irrigate the whole vineyard. The other line allows us to precision irrigate only areas that need the water. So we can look at the vines and see, and if there's only a certain part of the vineyard that needs water, we can apply directly to those vines and not have to use water over the whole vineyard to irrigate it. So
we're precision irrigating the vines that need the water and not the rest.
Right, exactly. And so it really helps us to conserve water, and that's our goal. We really want to just dial down and conserve that water.
That's occupying a huge amount of your time right now, isn't
It
it?
is. It is. It's
Gotta be
constantly on
mindful.
my mind. Yeah.
What happens if you just turn the water on? Like, just let it go?
Yeah, what if we
make it happy?
overwater the vines? What happens for these guys at the winery when there's too much water on those vines? What do they do to you?
Yeah.
So how we're using water, honestly, is to drive quality, I think, is the best question.
Right. Yeah. So water is probably the biggest influence, or one of the biggest influencers on the vine. And you add too much water, you get too much growth, you get bigger berries, and you get green flavors in the
Diluted
vine,
flavors.
Yeah,
diluted
less.
flavors. You get more shading on the canopy, so that's less light in the cluster. Really, you look for a balanced vine. You want a vine with enough canopy to support the amount of clusters you have. And if you add too much water, you're going to get more canopy, and you're just going to get more shading, and it just really dilutes the berries, like you're saying.
So you're trying to induce a certain amount of stress on these grapevines.
Right,
What happens if you go
absolutely.
too far and you stress them too much by
Yeah.
being a bit stingy with your water?
Yep. If you go too far, you don't water enough, then you start to see leaf senescence. So the canopy all of a sudden opens up, the clusters are exposed, and then you get sunburn. You'll start to see dehydration, and then you'll get a lot of raisin, old flavor.
Cooked.
Andrew loves
Tired,
trying to
cooked
make
flavors,
wine from
yes.
raisins.
Yeah, raisin wine's my favorite.
So really, he's on that fine line between greatness and horribleness. So
Yep. And I ride that line
You do.
hard.
Yeah, this is our expert. I mean, he's gone through Google fact check.
Well, that pretty much draws us to the end of our show tonight, guys. It's been a fun night. We'll be doing a few things at the winery. If you have any wine that you've purchased at a local retailer or from us, we are now doing private virtual tastings. So you can get online or call the winery, and no matter where you've got the wine, we will do a complimentary tasting for you with one of our trained tasting room hosts, and they will take you through the wines and tell you why they're so wonderful. The other thing is we'll be back again doing the next Rombauer Live on Thursday, May 20th. This will be the back to food and wine edition. We'll be doing basically a couple of the in-house home chefs that we have here at Rombauer will be doing their favorite burger recipes.
Won't be Luke.
And we'll be, they'll be
sure.
pairing them with their
Taste
favorite
testing.
wine. There might be a cameo from a couple of people you've never seen before, which will be a lot of fun. And yeah, I mean, did you guys have anything you wanted to add before we close it out, other than ripping on Andrew?
No, that's what this whole thing's about.
yeah, burgers.
Yeah.
Oh, wine.
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 Well, I hope you guys had a wonderful night and enjoyed Patrick talking away on what we're doing here and why it's so important to be sustainable for the future. And we'll see you again on May 20th. Have a great night, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.